we kind of figure out, and we're trying to figure out how to build this into our plan for next year. Now that we're in the last quarter of the year, we got a lot of goals to work on for next year. And that's one of the bigger goals for me for next year is, okay, we got the business down, we got the money down. Now how do we get into this part of it and help encourage other people to do the right thing? Like, housing should not be something that just because you don't have money that you don't get a place to live. Like, that's insane, man. And here in North Carolina, there's so many good folk don't have homes right now.
In the back of your mind, your dreams should be real, right?
Thanks all for tuning in to Dreamcatchers, where we make things happen. Dreamcatchers was formally launched to unlock the hidden potential in successful, self-motivated individuals who desire to take their life's work to the next level but need support to evolve. We are a collective group of professionals with various backgrounds that use our talents to assist those individuals in realizing their wildest dreams by providing education, inspiration, and direction. This podcast is where we share the lessons we've learned along the way to catching our dreams and give you some context around the how and the why to each approach to put you further ahead on the journey to catching your dream. Are you ready?
1 2 1 2. Hey everybody, and welcome to the Dreamcatchers podcast. I'm your host Jerome, and I've got the great pleasure of having Glenn Esterson with me today. Glenn, how are things down in Wilmington, NC?
It's a beautiful day, man. You know, it's a glorious life sometimes. I'm having a good time.
I feel like it's all the time, man. I'm grateful to meet your acquaintance a couple of weeks ago, and we were jamming. I was like, I got to get Glenn on the podcast. So here we sit today. I appreciate you making some time for us. Before we
man.
To the episode too deep, what's the best way for folks to get in contact with you?
My website's the easiest way, guys. It's themhpexpert.com. And on there, you can just click around, find my phone and email and stuff like that. I return every phone call. I return every email. I'm here to help people. By all means, just, hit me up if you want to chat. More than happy to talk.
Beautiful. And so we don't do a whole lot of introductions here because I really want to pull out the story as we go through the conversation today. And so the first question is just kind of along the lines of, like, before you jumped out and started living the life of your wildest dreams, what was life like?
It's a funny ride getting to where you're trying to go. You never know what's around that corner, right? It's be somebody to make your day or somebody to break your day. And the first 25 years of my life, really 35 years of my life, was a lot about breaking my day. And I was adopted. I was raised by a really great family, but we were worlds apart. And I left home at a very young age. And just floundered and floundered and floundered and floundered. And, that growing up, I didn't know what was, good for me or bad for me. I just kind of reacted. And that little chip on your shoulder just every year kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, not even realizing that you have a chip. And around 25 years old, I had my first kid. And his mom was an alcoholic. And he was born with a bad liver. And it was real intense. I mean, like intense. And so I lived in a hospital for a couple of years with my son while he was getting liver transplants and ended up getting cancer from one of the liver transplants and going through all that jazz. And I said, there's got to be a better way in life than sitting here just getting your ass kicked every day. And I was poor. I mean, I was dirt poor, and luckily we had state-sponsored insurance and that kind of stuff. And I'm looking at these other families that are in these hospitals with me, and they got problems that were like eclipse my problems, man. My kid's alive and his body looks pretty normal, and they got kids with hearts outside of them, and stomachs outside of them, and these terrible experiences. And I sat there. It was the first time in my life, and I'd been through more than most by that point in my life. I mean, in and out of just terrible places. But that was the first time in my life when I remember seeing this beautiful family with this child who was absolutely just stricken with cancers and terrible events. And they're smiling and they're happy and they're having a good time. And I'm sitting there boo-hooing so hard every day about my son and woe is me shit, sorry stuff. And And it occurred to me, like, if those guys can be happy and grateful, then I'm a schmuck if I'm not, because I'm pretending like my problems are bigger than everybody else's. And something clicked in there, and the fire began inside my belly. And I said, I'm not going to allow this to be a determining factor or the final nail in my coffin. And that was all it took. You know, my son got healthy. I couldn't get employed. I mean, I was unemployable at that stage in my life. And so I got my real estate license. And, you know, they'll take anybody with a real estate license, you know. So I went and did that and hooked up with this landlord guy that was like a family friend, but he was like a hardcore, like old school New Yorker type of landlord, and didn't take no guff and did everything the way I wouldn't do it. But I was really impressed with this guy, and he was providing all this housing, really, really cheap housing for people, for like the poorest of the poor. And he's like, you know, you could do this, Glenn. I said, what do you mean I could do this? He's like, you know, why don't you help me find tenants for my apartments, and I'll give you a half month's rent. And before I knew it, I was making real money and helping people find housing. And that ship started filling in a little bit. It wasn't me against the world, and it wasn't the world against me. It was, you know, kind of like purposeful almost. Like now all of a sudden I got something I believe in beyond just the hatred of life that's been just horribly difficult to understand. And before I knew it, I had enough money to go buy a farm. And that's been my dream since I was a kid, you know, buying my own farm and being a farmer and dropping off the grid. So I saved up my money. I worked my butt off. And before I knew it, I had my first 6 figures. And to me, coming from where I came from, that might as well have been $1 billion, you know. And I said, that's enough. I said, doctors told me the best way for my son to remain healthy was to go get out in the country air and feed organic foods and live a good life like that. And I said, you ain't got to tell me twice. So I bought a farm in the middle of nowhere for like $1,000 an acre in the middle of North Carolina somewhere. And raised my kids out, you know, raised my son out there by myself. You know, mom was long gone, you know, all that kind of stuff. And boy, it was beautiful. It was awesome. Except I was poor, very poor still. That $100,000, that didn't last very long, you know. And, you know, years went by, decades went by. And about 35 years old, I got my life pretty well together by that point. And I turned into the most oddest career ever. I was North Carolina's largest mushroom grower, you know, for shiitake mushrooms, you know, and made a little business out of that, and started a co-op with a guy that was a really great guy named Rodney. He was kind of like way smarter than me. And he's like, no, let's do this. And I said, if you're doing it, I'm doing it. So we started this really great co-op with like 300 farmers, teaching people how to make 10 or 20 grand a year off of just, you know, scrap wood. And, you know, it was great, but like my best year was like 30 grand. You know, I said, well, this ain't gonna work. And I had bought a trailer park at the time. This is kind of how my career got started. Was, you know, I bought a trailer park in the middle of nowhere, straight rednecks and meth labs, you know, like that whole type of thing. And just like what you'd see on the trailer park show, except this was real life for me, and it was real hard. It was real difficult, but it was the only way I can make money without actually like having a job, because like I said, I was pretty much unemployable even still. In the mushroom business, while fun, didn't really make you much money. And so I bought this trailer park and realized that, like, hey, it's way harder than I could have ever imagined, but at least I can count on having a decent income from this thing. And eventually that turned into, why am I sitting here on my farm working for peanuts? I have potential, and it's almost unfair to my children at this point that I'm not using the top potential of my life, despite having a beautiful, fun life and teaching my kids that happiness is the most important, or at least thinking happiness was the most important. And eventually I said, you know what, I'm going to go get back in the real estate game. And boy, I've never looked back since. You know, it's a lot of fat you got to cut. You know, I had to change relationships. I had to do a lot of things that were very hard. You know, we hold on to this negative crap, this negative stuff, like it's something to cherish. It's weird, man. You know, and eventually you just let go of it, and then life gets a little bit easy. Now, life, in my experience, has never gotten easy. It's never gotten easy. It never will get easy. It's a grind, you know, and you got to be prepared for that every day. And as long as you don't die, you know, I think you're doing all right. You know, so but I started with very low expectations in life. You know, now I do pretty well. I do. You know, I got a beautiful young wife. I got 3 kids. I got a giant house. You know, we travel, you know, around the world as often as we can. And, you know, everybody's you know, doing pretty well. And it was a long road to get here, but that was kind of, you know, 40 something years in a nutshell.
That's amazing. And so there's a few things that you said that jumped out, but there's one that I really want to lean on. And it's this concept of you deciding that I don't want to be poor anymore and I'm being selfish or
Yeah.
kind of mistreating my family if I don't live out my best life.
Yeah.
So, did you have a few different situations or times along the journey where you were like, you were being called to do more, but you stayed in kind of that comfort zone of just,
Yeah. Yeah, I did, you know, but there was times like when my son was born, right? You know, I thought like, right before he was born, I said, I'm going to go to college, you know, like I'm going to go be a college graduate. And dude, I loved college. It was great. I did 4 years of college in like 2.5 years, you know, and right in that last, you know, year of college, I thought I was going to go do, you know, customer service or something like that for a .com, and got a job with a .com. They imploded just as, you know, a little bit later, but before I graduated college, you know, I got a girl pregnant who I just met, and that turned out to be my son. And you know, so I had to drop out of college. Luckily, my grades carried me through, and I was able to get my degree. But you know, it was then he was born, and I was already working for this .com, and they were going belly up with the, you know, the bubble burst that, you know, happened in 99, 2000. And I just kept saying, like, life just doesn't want me to be successful. Life just doesn't want to. I mean, starting from where I was, like every instance of my life was like a giant hammer coming down. And, you know, my dad, I'd cry to my dad, you know, and he'd look at me like I was on drugs or something, you know, like, what are you talking about, Glenn? You have most potential of anybody, you know. And I said, Dad, I'll never make more than $40,000 a year. I was 25 or something, right? Crying to him. Maybe I was 22, 23. And he's just looking at me like, don't be stupid. You don't know what's ahead of you. And I couldn't believe that. I just couldn't believe that, you know, like, because life was that hard. And I wouldn't believe that until I was in my 30s. And one day I was going through a pretty terrible breakup with a woman. And I remember saying to myself, like, if this is the most I had to offer my kids, living in 1,000 square feet with, you know, my 3 kids and her 3 kids, and, you know, 6 kids in 1,000 square feet with 1 bathroom, man, like, whew, like, that was fun, you know, for a very long time, you know, for a very long time. And we'd have to rent out our house during the warmer months. And so we could make a few extra bucks. And we lived in a cabin that was 400 square feet, all of us. It was nuts, you know, and not even a bathroom in that cabin. We were pooping in the woods, like, for real, you know, like, because, like, how else are you going to survive? I mean, we dumpster dived, we did all these things. And I started thinking, like this can't be what my kids are destined for. This can't be. And if I'm their main source of inspiration in life is for, at least, you know, if you have a you know, father figure in your life, for most boys, it seems to be that the father's a big inspiration. At least my adopted father was. And it just started occurring to me, like, I'm holding back, and I'm doing it because I got this chip on my shoulder that tells me I can't do more than what I'm doing. I'm living this great life, but why am I broke? Why am I unhappy? Why am I struggling? Why this? Why that? Why am I picking food up out of a dumpster and trying to, you know, make it seem like it's a normal thing, you know? And eventually I said, the hell with this. I'm gonna make it or break it. I'm gonna try one more time. One more time, I'm gonna go try and make my fortune. And that one more time was all it took. It was all it took, you know. It was I flew out to Atlanta, got an interview with this public company, gave them my best spiel, like determination, drive, you know, look past my past, look at me now, look at what I'm doing, look what I'm dealing with. If you think I can't outrun everybody in your office, you know, I'll prove you wrong. You can fire me in 6 months if I'm not the best person you fire. And somehow I got bought it. I can't believe he bought it, but somehow he bought it. And I forced myself to live up to that. And it cost me that relationship, which was very near and dear to me, you know, but, like, it was a direction that woman didn't want to go. And so I learned to refer to that, because it happened many times in my life. You know, if you want to get to where you're going, sometimes you got to cut the fat. And that fat is painful to cut, man. It's painful. And, you know, I don't do drugs, I don't drink, I don't do all these other things that I could have put my attention into. And so I usually just get massive anxiety, and so how the hell with that? I'm not going to sit here and cry all day. And I just dove into work like my life depended on it. And that phrase, my life depended on it, became what I needed to tell myself every single day, because my life depends on it. My kids' life depends on it. I want them going to good schools. I don't want them eating out of dumpsters. And, now here we are. There's two phrases that always rang true for me. And one was, I will persist until I succeed. And the other is, work like your life depends on it, because man, it does. It does. A lot of us think we're working hard. A lot of us think we're like, oh yeah, I'm doing all this stuff, you find yourself not getting anywhere. It's like you're celebrating these really tiny progresses, and you're like, I know I shouldn't be celebrating this little progress, because kindergarten can do what I'm doing. It was when my mentality changed from this, this almost like inside my head somewhere it was telling me I was a loser and wasn't good enough, to like, nah, F that. I might not be as good as everybody else, but you know what I am? I'm fucking determined. And if I want to get somewhere, I'm gonna do what I got to do to get there. And there's fallout. There's always fallout. But if you make time for what's important for you, and at the top of what's important for you is my children, at least for me, my children, my parents, my wife, also like one big, most important thing in my life. And then everything else really kind of fell out to the side. As long as I didn't lose any of that, I was willing to go as hard and as long as it took to get to where I am now. And now I'm stuck in a pattern of like, I just got to keep going, because now it's like, now I see something like, it's like getting to the top of the mountain and seeing like, oh, look at all those other mountains I can go climb, and it's kind of like that. Now it's just like my brain pops every day with like ideas. And, we own businesses, we own real estate. I'm only 20. What do I have to offer the world thing? Man, I'm glad you're thinking about that now, son, because, you're already ahead of me at the game before I started thinking about that, at that age. And it's a trying challenge. And seeing people blossom into what they do best, man, it's the coolest thing, and it's like, people are like, oh, what about your competitors? I got nothing but praise for my competitors, guys who are performing, people that like aren't even really friends of mine. I still kind of keep track of because I see what they're doing. I get so happy for people when I see people moving past what I know was uncomfortable for them, because that uncomfort zone, man, that's just scary. Like that, like, it's like, no, I'll just sit here on the couch and just not try, because like, at least I know the couch won't kill me, and
So Glenn, you've talked about cutting the fat. You've talked about just making that big pitch. Was there a point where like you decided like this is rock bottom, it can't get any worse, and just kind of everything's on the line? Was it that pitch in Atlanta, or was there some other stuff?
rock bottom was every day of my life before I was 35 almost. Okay. And every single day that there was, I was like, oh, it can't get much worse than this. Whew. It's like, yeah, I got something for you, bro. And it's like, oh, I married this, or I got this girl pregnant who I don't even know. I met her for 5 days before she was pregnant. Now it doesn't get much worse than that. And let me show you how much worse it gets, and then with the alcoholism, and then a boy being born with a failed liver, and then all that process. Every single day was the worst day of my life, up until I finally said, that's my fault. That's not anything else's fault. That's my fault that I have the worst life, not anything else. And, I can blame it on all these amazing reasons, and like fully justifiable to say, like, that's not my fault. That was her fault. That's not my fault. That was this fault, and totally protect yourself, which is what I was doing, But until I got real with me and said, I don't want to live like that anymore. I'm going to do something about it. That's that bridge you need to get to, and for most of us, for maybe a lot of people, it's really easy. I don't know. I mean, maybe people who got that silver spoon stuff, like they're taught differently from the beginning, and it's a lot easier for them, maybe, for me, it was like, not like that, for me, my parents, the guys who adopted me, they're successful and they're wonderful and they're amazing people. My dad's my best friend, but I didn't learn anything more than, no, just go to school, like that was all I learned from that, the whole time. And I was always taken to things that were on the wrong side of the tracks, it just seemed cooler to me at the time, and led me down some not great paths. And for each one of those paths, I eventually get to a point, and something inside me would say, I think you've gone too far, turn around, and make a conscious decision to never do that again. And that those little tiny victories in my earlier part of life, I'm never doing that again, I think was like the conditioning that I needed eventually to say, wait a second, if I can quit this, quit that, stop doing this, stop doing that, I can feel this chip in my, my shoulder, and I can turn my life around. And, it's eventually you do. So, I mean, I don't know if that answers your question, but every single day was the worst day of my life before I got my life together, man. Every single day was a kick in the nuts. And now my life is extremely hard, dude. It's still extremely hard. I mean, I get pressure from every angle imaginable. And it's okay now. Like now it just, blows right off. And, you argue with the kids or your wife or your bosses or your, colleagues or whatever. To me, it's no longer personal. I don't care. You're just doing you. And I support you doing you, and it becomes easy. Like, I don't know what it is that changed, but something changed with that where I stopped taking it all personal and realized in love, business, and war ain't nothing personal. It's just the way it is. And on your way to the top, there's every single person out there that's trying to cut your throat. And it's okay. They're just doing them. That's part of the process of getting from the bottom to the top, and, here I am, like, doing pretty well. And still every day people throw wrenches and, duck and weave, and it's cool. You do you, bro. I'm going to keep doing me, and I'm going to see where we end up in a few years because I got goals. Having goals is seriously like the best thing. Like, if for anybody that doesn't know this, pick a goal and live up to that goal. It's the best. It is the absolute best, like right on my wall up over here, there's you can't see it out here, but a little, piece of paper that every year on January 1st, I write my 2 biggest goals on this thing. Okay. It's usually a financial goal and it's usually like a behavioral goal. And I just literally stare at it every year. And the next year I'll stick a new one up on it. And next year I'll stick a new one up on it. This thing's like a stack of paper at this point. And I believe in that kind of presto manifesto type of stuff in life at this point, because it's not like, oh, I want this, so boom, it snaps up. But it is like, I want this so bad, I'm going to make it material in my life, and I'm going to put intention behind it, and I'm going to hold myself accountable, because it's pretty annoying to see your goals right up in front of you and you don't hit them, it's like a little annoying. You're like, man, like last year, I didn't hit my goals last year, like I still did like better than most could imagine, right? But I didn't hit my personal goals. And it was like that fire, like once like November, December came around and I realized there was no possible way for me to get to my number, that fire really started building. Like, what do I have to do different to this year be able to get to my last year goal? Because my goal doesn't really change until I hit that goal, because I don't even know what's the next goal to set. I have my eventual when I die type of goal, right? But these little baby step goals, these annual goals, to me, like, they're important, very, very important. Like, you can have a 5-year goal. Like, I want to be this thing in 5 years. Great. That's like a dream in my world. It's not really like a goal. The goal is like the baby step every year. What can I do to get to this number financially or whatever you might be doing? And so, like, when I look at this thing right now, I'm dead on target, man. I am dead on target to hit that stupid number on my wall. And I'm dead on target. I've already finished it. I mean, it's an always ever growing thing, but emotional intelligence is a thing this last couple of years that has been very important to me in my life, because communication is so damn hard. Like communicating with your wife, your kids, whoever, it's hard, man. So, and I realized that, like, while I'm a great salesperson, advisor person, or whatever, my kids and my wife, they don't respond like my clients do. They take it a totally different way. And so I had to learn how to condition my own humanity to be able to better communicate with my family, which to me is more important than the money, right? So
What's up, tribe? It's your host, Jerome. I just want to let you know that we put together a free 15-point checklist for exiting the matrix. Jump on over to dreamshouldbereal.com in order to pick your free copy up. Let's get back to the show.
And emotional intelligence have been what's really been driving me this last couple of years to be a slightly better man tomorrow than I was today, and to be a slightly richer man tomorrow than I was today. It's not a massive goal. It's just it's an achievable goal. And, learning from your mistakes, man, that's me. Like, didn't know I was supposed to learn from them until, 35 years of my life. But now here we are. And for better or worse, I feel like I'm on the right track finally.
Without question. And I mean, you just dropped so many jewels there. The one that is really exciting for me is, you know, having mile markers as you go on that journey towards that North Star, whatever it is.
Yep.
The other thing that you said that was like super important, I don't think people really put the two and two together. The better you are with relationships, the more wealthy you're going to be, because the relationships are what turn into those big dollars. You can be transactional and not have good relationships and do really small opportunities or small deals. But if you want to do those big deals, it takes an immense amount of energy and a deep relationship and bond to make that happen.
It really does. And in my role, so I sell trailer parks, mobile home communities, manufacturing communities around the country. It's such a weird little business, right? Most people never hear probably too many people that do. There's just like a handful of us in the country that make a real living off this business. And, inside this industry that I do of sales, there's a big transactional part of it, like it's a big part of it because, I want to sell my park and you find me a buyer. There's a transaction there, right? But relationships are hands down how you make more money in this business. And, just in this last quarter, just in quarter three, I sold, I think it was 14 or 15 parks, $32 million, and like I don't know if that's a good number or a bad number, but for me, that's a pretty good number, compared to maybe somebody else in the country that does more. Great, good for him. I don't even know about what you're doing, So, but for me, that is more in one quarter than I was doing in an entire year just a few years ago. Okay. And now I have a team and I pay these guys just as much as they need to be happy. And for none of us on the team is it about the money, except it's about the money, but it's not about the money. It's about the relationship. It's knowing that, we have a bond, that I got your back, you got my back. There is no I in this team. It's all like, none of us win if all of us don't win. And that's just kind of how my team plays out. And, it's against the grain for most teams in real estate that have a team system like what we have. I make way less money on a per deal basis than I used to make, but I think overall it's given me friendship. It's given me, true bonds with my teammates and gives me its own sense of happiness that I get outside of, being in a family man and stuff like that. It's the older you get, the harder it is to have friends. They're like nothing for nothing. I only got maybe 5 or 6 friends, so, my team is very important to me. And I think each and every one of them knows that. I mean, I'm taking my entire team to St. Thomas here in January for an all expense, luxury little trip here in January because we did so well so far this year. Not too many other guys are doing things like that, but because I know how important it is to actually express gratitude and not some, hyped up, office PC kind of, I support you nonsense, but put your money where your mouth is and show these guys, that like, we're here to grow with each other. I'm here to learn from you, hopefully you learn something from me and, that whole kind of thing. And it's because it's a strange path to be successful in business. It's not as easy as people make it seem. It's just not, it's like, it's so hard, it's like on the internet, you can make it look like you're wicked successful and, doing great. I own all these things, do all this stuff, but how much money are you making, and how much of your time is that costing you? And for me, it's never really been about the money. I mean, if I made $30,000 in a year, I was like, hey, like woo. I mean, some years I made less than $10,000, So I started from a very low thing, but now I got goals that are like, like I don't deserve to have goals this big, and yet I somehow feel like I'm going to achieve them by the time it's done and done. I think I'm going to get there because if I'm not going to get there, I'm going to do some other way to get there because it's what I want to do until life tells me, Glenn, you're on the wrong path again. Go find a different path. And you have to be cognizant of this stuff, you have to be. You can't jeopardize everything in your life just for your own selfish goal. So, in my own kind of hippity-dippity view of how the world works is, life is always going to swing you back to center, but that pendulum is going to swing you a little far to kind of overcompensate from how far you came. And you have to learn how to really navigate that. because it's like, we all like to chase butterflies and think everything is such a, oh, I got to do all these things. And you realize, oh, that was too far to the left. Oh, that was too far to the right. And it's like, when you finally start paying attention, you like hone in. It's like, I'm not chasing butterflies, bro. Like, I'm not doing it. I'm gonna go get the caterpillar. It's way easier. Like I don't have to do all these different things. I'm gonna get this slow and steady kind of thing going. I'm gonna build momentum on it. And the thing about success is it breeds success. Like I don't know how this works, but now they got me on TVs and they got me doing all this. I just wrote a book, like all this weird stuff. That like it wasn't even on like my radar, man. like I don't know how to feel about all that, but hey, this is all part of the process. And nothing, I know, even if I fail, I know my kids are seeing where we came from. Okay, sharing six kids and 8 people in a tiny little house in the middle of nowhere, having a dumpster dive for our food. And my kids don't, nothing for nothing, but my oldest kid used to have to jump in the dumpsters with me, and coming from that and seeing where dad is now, and all it takes is just some restructuring of some critical elements of your mental process and cutting out some of the bad elements of your life. That's all it takes. They know that is doable now. And that's all I wanted to make sure they knew, was that the impossible is possible if somebody shows you that it's not impossible, That just tells you. Because for most of us, we have to see it to believe it, And I think, I'm hoping, I don't know, man, hippity-dippity stuff again. I'm hoping that this somehow gets my kids to be like, I'm on that path, Dad. I know it's going to be hard, but I know it's doable because you did it, And, my middle son, he's only 12 years old, but he's got accepted into Duke 2 years ago. He was not even 11. He got accepted into Duke, on there's a kid program and blah, 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 but he's got a path to have a full ride at Duke now when he's ready. So he's in these accelerated programs. Not me, bro. I wasn't there, like, so this move, this fundamental shift that I've taken has had an impact on all my kids. And I think they've all seen that, like, yeah, farm life was fun and we did whatever we want, but unless if that's the lifestyle you want, you got to try for things. And they're all trying. Like my youngest son is one of the best baseballers in his league. My middle son, like I said, he's an intellectual now, and he's just like so cool to hang out with and hear his thoughts on science. And my oldest son, he's more of an artist type of person, and he's getting his legs under him. And he's going to be golden, his logic is there. He's just got to work through that last little bit of teenage angst, And I couldn't be prouder of myself for it, and because that was the only reason I did this stuff, And like luckily here I am now, and it's pretty cool. I don't know. I feel like I'm bragging a little bit, so I'm going to tone it down a little bit. But
You should. You should, right? Because you think about it, family is probably one of the most important things. Well, you've said it already. Family is the most important thing for you. And I think it's probably the most important thing for you because of your upbringing. And so the fact that you've been able to create this life and be an example for those little people and show them what is possible, I think, and then them actually going out and doing something with it instead of just kind of shrugging their shoulders and being snotty little brats, is where you should have your biggest sense of pride and fulfillment. So I don't blame you. I like to brag on Kay and Leah too. So it's good being a dad. That's part of the reason why I wanted.
It's the best, bro. It's the best. I know a lot of dads out there give up because they got a crazy woman that just makes it too hard. At least that's what they tell themselves. I'll tell you, it's like, you don't even know half of crazy. Okay. And, as a man who's got kids to raise, you brought them in this thing, you got to take care of these kids, like no matter how much poop you got to eat from this other person, no matter how painful it's going to be, you got to do it. That was the only thing in my life that like I really cared about, because I had nothing else to care about. So I just put myself in that position of like, ain't nothing going to break this bond between me and my kid. But, as a guy who was adopted, I from day one, once I learned I was adopted, that is, longed to have some blood, some, like, that kid is me, and there's nothing more important than that to me. Is like, you're part of me, and therefore it's my responsibility to make sure I give you the best shot in life and not allow any of these other excuses to deter that, because I have to be in your life. I have to deal with your mom or your whatever, and no matter what they're doing, it's not going to make me not be your dad. And that that to me, like, dude, like, it's okay if I die. It's okay if I'm poor. It's okay if I'm all these other things, as long as my kids know that dad's going to come through thick or thin, and not let some excuse get in his way because he's having an emotional difficulty with somebody else that's involved in my life. Like, how do people have that problem where they like, there's this really great guy that he's a young man. He's about 19 or 20. He's a homeless kid a few years ago that I met that was here in Wilmington. And I'm like, what are you doing? You can't sleep outside, like, that's not cool. So I brought him in, as a stranger, and he lived with us for like a year and a half. Drove my kids crazy, like, he drove crazy. But he's like my adopted son now. I love that guy. Like, his name's Larry. He's amazing. And, like, this poor guy had a terrible father who left him, had a mom who just, had too many kids and never paid attention to him. And she was dying in hospice. And he's sitting on the street trying to go to school and eating out of the dumpster and doing all that kind of stuff. I said, well, it's winter time, like, I don't know you, but I'm going to give you a shot. But that kid has lived up to it. He still has a long road ahead of him, and I think showing experiences like that to my children, despite how aggravating it might have been for them at times, because, it's a totally new personality and this guy's, totally different than them and things like that. But I think that's the important stuff that as a father, I need to teach them this, how to be a human, how to help humans, how to be determined in your goals and how to show up over and over again. And that's for me what it takes, to feel good about what I'm doing in life, like right now on my farm, like, I'm not living there, right? So I got a pile of people living over there for free because it's like, like, you need a place, so we can go stay there. There's a real great guy. His name's Froggy. It's a funny name, I know, but him and his wife and his two kids, their house flooded a couple of years ago, and they were pregnant. Came out of the hospital, and the kids were born in the house covered in mold. And like, Glenn, I don't know what to do. So we let them move into our farm, and so they're staying there and getting their feet up under them. And they, have other people. It's a big farm, so we have other people stay there and help out with this, that, or the other on the thing. And, it's like, sometimes people are like, why would you don't even know these guys? What do I care if I know these guys or not? I'm in a position to help. Let's help. Like, it don't cost me nothing. Like, there might be some risk there that, like, break something or steal something, but like, so, like, what's that going to do to me? You know what I mean? Like, and, there's always consequences. If you do something bad, I'm not going to keep helping you, right? But like, at the same time, it's like, I'm in a position to help, and if I can help, I want to help. And that statement of "I will persist until I succeed" comes from a book from Og Mandingo, who, I really encourage all of your readers to read it. And it's a stupid name for a book. I don't even really know how it applies, but it's called The Greatest Salesman on Earth, and it's about this philosophy of just, always give more than you take, and if you make $100, give 50 of it away. Like, just like, what do you care? And for cover my thing, like $10,000, $20,000 a year. Now I have more money. It's like, what do I care? What do I like? I'm fine as long as my nuts covered every month. Like, let's go help people out. And so that's been a big change, on my team as we're getting pretty successful with things. Is how do we do more to support more communities, and how do we do more to help more people? And do we buy somebody a mobile home and give them a space in a park as part of like the thank you for whatever? Or do we supply this, that, or the other? Do we just make a donation to this cause or that cause? For me, I like that direct helping stuff, like bringing Larry into my life, and nurturing that type of stuff. Some of the guys on my team don't like that aspect, and I can't require that of them, right? So it's we kind of figure out, and we're trying to figure out how to build this into our plan for next year. Now that we're in the last quarter of the year, we got a lot of goals to work on for next year, and that's one of the bigger goals for me for next year. Is okay, we got the business down, we got the money down. Now how do we get into this part of it and help encourage other people to do the right thing? Like, housing should not be something that just because you don't have money that you don't get a place to live. Like, that's insane, man. And here in North Carolina, there's so many good folk don't have homes right now. And because whether they got tossed out of their house too young, because they got some dysfunctional household stuff, or, because they sold a bag of weed to somebody and got arrested and kicked out, or, whatever it might be, you still deserve to have a place, you know. And to me, that's going to be one of the big principles of the next mission in my life, is to really try and help that kind of side of stuff. Because I feel terrible when I see a homeless person, you know.
You've been there before, so you get
Yeah.
it. So
I mean, if you haven't slept under a bridge reading out of the dumpster, I don't want to talk about how these, you know, people, you know, could do more on their own if they just get their life together. You know, it's like, it ain't like that, man. There's a lot of, you know, sexual abuse, mental abuse, you know, a lot of these type of things that cause the situation to happen. And it sucks, man. You know, and then we just grind them harder because they don't fit up to our status quo of what we think a person should be doing with their life, you know. And for me, it's, you know, I'm probably going on a rant here.
yeah, but I think it's what you're passionate about, and for me, that's the most important thing, and the thing that I was most interested in hearing from you on. And so, the final question for this episode, because this has been phenomenal, at least from my standpoint, is what is the one thing you want listeners to take away from this conversation?
Man, I will persist until I succeed. That's what I want you all to know. Trust me, you didn't come up any harder than I did. I mean, I promise, you know, and I promise that you have more ability to go further than I did. Okay. And if you're young and you're thinking life's too hard and that mountain's too high, you ain't got nothing better to do anyways, you know. So you better start walking and getting up that hill. And it takes a lot of process, man. You know, it takes getting confidence in yourself. Take that school course. You know, people dismiss college and stuff like that as unnecessary in today's world because all you need is a trade and you can make your 50 grand or whatever. Cool, yeah, you can, you know, but what colleges and classes teach you is a new process of learning, and you get these new ideas just because you learned a new idea, you know, and the spin out from there can lead you to just wondrous places. I mean, I've been to every 50 state, I've been to, you know, dozens of countries, and I've seen this around everywhere. People, no matter where that I've gone, the people that seem the happiest are the guys that are pushing themselves. You know, the guys that are like, oh, I, you know, started in this pretty weird spot, and you know, I wasn't going to take no for an answer, and now I'm here. And like, it's not skill, it's mindset. It's mindset that gets you from point A to B. You know, like, we all have the same opportunities ahead of you. And I know there's definitely some privilege out there. And there's definitely lots of, you know, barriers to entry for a lot of people, you know, and giving some people a head start and giving some people, you know, a backward start. How's a backward start do? You know, like, I might have started with a little privilege and then immediately lost all because I took every wrong turn possible. And, you know, like, when I stopped making that excuse is when things started happening. When I said, well, shit, I still have a long way to go. I better start walking. You know, that's what it takes, you know, because eventually it compounds. Eventually it does. Eventually you start meeting the right people. You start talking the right talk, walking the right walk, living the right lifestyle, finding your sense of purpose. And from there, man, once you find your purpose, man, it's so much better in life, you know. And you might not know what your purpose is yet. I mean, like, I don't know, you know, like, I know I didn't know what my purpose. I thought I was going to be a freaking cowboy farmer type, you know, like, I thought that's what I needed in life to be happy. And I realized once I had that, like, this is miserable. I mean, it's cool, but it's miserable, you know, like, oh, it's just a selfish way of life almost, you know, for me. And, you know, when I say I want to help people, I want to make a lot of money, and I just want to see if I can get as far as I can go. That sense of purpose really pulls the path out for you. And, you know, there's lots of great literature out there on you know, emotional intelligence, and guys, that's a piece of the puzzle. It is. It's just a piece of the puzzle, because you have to know how to respond in different emotional situations, and how to interpret those thoughts instead of just letting that negative really hurt you. Because most of us, you know, we get on the angry side of life, everything's angry. You know, if you're a hammer, all you see is a nail. You know what I mean, kind of thing. And you know, if you're on the super happy side of life, well, you know, maybe you're not trying necessarily hard, because life's not meant to be super happy or super hard. You're supposed to find that nice balance where you're struggling in that 3 to 5% struggle above what you're capable of, because that's where the meat is, man. You know, like, I can go 3% harder. You know, like, 3% harder ain't hard. You know what I mean? But if I'm starting with $1,000, I'm trying to get to $1 million, that ain't digestible, bro. You know, so start with $1,000. Well, maybe I can get to $1,100. You know, maybe I can get, you know, whatever that next little tiny increment is, start building that path, start building your intelligence, start building your skill sets, and just, learn as much as you can about everything. Guys, I have a doctorate degree in mycology. Like, trust me, totally not useful in life. It's a study of mushrooms, if you don't know. Totally not useful in life, but because it taught me new patterns of learning and it was something I was into, I think it helped set the foundation for me to be able to understand how to get from $1,000 to $1 million, because I was able to understand the details of what that learning process looked like to get from these things. So I can dissect these things down to baby little elements that are now digestible. Like, that's all I got to do is just be a little bit better tomorrow, and you'll be eventually where you need to go. If you can take a big step, take a big step. But if you can't take a big step, take a small step, like, like whatever that might be, I don't know what it is for you, but whatever that might be, it's, my kids argue about, oh, it's going to take forever to do the chores. Well, you're still going to have to do them. You might as well get started now. And maybe this time when you're vacuuming the floor, you're going to be able to, learn a trick from last time, because, you won't have to go back and do it again this time. You got a little bit better on that. And in a year from now, you're not going to argue with me about vacuuming the floors. Same with the dishes, same with the whatever it might be. And that's, to me, been very important in my process. Is like, I gave up competing with people. I gave up comparing myself to people. And all I want to do is be a little bit better tomorrow, whatever that means, a little bit better tomorrow, because that usually is going to make me feel better. Start with the easy stuff. Like, whatever that might be. Like, oh, I'm going to drink one less soda a day. I lost 40 pounds in the last 6 months. Okay. And I said, how did I get so fat? My wife cooks really good food, right? And I said, I just have to stop. So what can I do to make me stop? I can't blame my wife for cooking good food, but what I can do is say, hey, babe, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take over the cooking for dinner. Okay. So I started cooking dinner. I said, oh, well, this is good. I'm losing a little bit of weight, but I'm still drinking soda like a madman. Well, I'm gonna drink one less soda today. Now I'm down to one soda a day, and I'm fine with that. And I've lost 40 pounds. A little bit better tomorrow is all you got to aim for.
Beautiful. Glenn, I thank you so much for being so generous with your time today. I think the listeners are going to take a lot away. I know I did. And the biggest thing that I took away is the importance of really just getting 1% better and being a human and seeing humanity in others, regardless of where their position is in life. I think so many of us can turn up our nose and forget that the other people, maybe because they have less money than we do, or whatever status or whatever we want to compare it to, and they don't deserve what we deserve. But you exemplify the fact that no matter where you start, you can go to where you want to go.
It ain't about where you're from. It's about where you're going, man. That's it.
Beautiful. So Glenn, again, thank you so much, and we'll talk soon.
I can't wait. Thanks for having me on here, Jerome.
Thank you for joining the tribe today. We would love to hear from you. Please don't forget to rate, like, and share. Perhaps someone you know could benefit from what we've discussed. Until the next time, remember that your dreams should be real.